What's up guys, welcome back. Today we got a lot of work to do. I want to get a lot of stuff done on this. This may take a few days, but I got to get going on this. I got parts piling up, don't have much room to move around. So I got to get going on this, make some of these parts disappear on the project and keep this thing moving along. Show you what we got going on and what we're going to do today. So in the last video, we got the engine pulled out of the square body. We also pulled the 6-liter out of the Cadillac, got it out. Now I did get this kind of put back together. I put the intake and stuff back on it, took it outside and pressure washed it as best I could, try and get as much of that stuff off of there as possible. So we're working with something as clean as possible. Yeah, there's a little more cleanup to do and I'm hoping to get to that today, but we're starting with a fresh slate. After I pressure washed it, I pulled the intake back off, got the wiring harness off, just laying over here. And I'm gonna start pulling this thing down because I got a whole pile of new parts over here for it. So I got all new gaskets, new oil pump, timing chain, clutch and flywheel to adapt the LS to the SM465 in there. I got some of the fuel parts in here also. I need to gather a few more before we can work on the fuel system. All new hydraulics for the clutch system. I got new tank hangers for the new tanks I got. And then back over here, we're gonna be replacing this cross member that goes across right here in the motor mounts to the off-road design version. So I got this box. This is the off-road design cross member with their heavy-duty motor mounts. I also got a steering box brace, so I need to get this stuff out, get it primed and painted, let that start drying. I also want to pull the rest of the drivetrain out, the transmission and transfer case, because I think that transfer case is leaking, so I want to reseal it. I want to get that transmission all cleaned up, and I think it'll be easier to mate that transmission to the engine, stuff the whole thing in as a unit versus trying to get it lined up with it in the truck. So I'm gonna get going on some of this stuff. I think I'll start right here with the cross member, get going on that, and then I'll probably have my kids out here helping me too, cleaning up some parts in the parts washer, just maybe painting, getting stuff ready and kind of staying ahead of me so I can keep this project rolling. So that's the plan for this video. If you guys like watching my stuff, like these videos that I'm putting out, make sure you're subscribed, make sure you hit that thumbs up button because I like making them. So let's get going on this.
Hey.
cross member out, the motor mount's out. Bought me a little bit, those rivets didn't want to come out. But I got them out. Let's take a look at the new cross member from Off-Road Design. So this is that new cross member. It doesn't come coated or anything. It's a lot stouter than the one that was in there, that stamped steel. This is all welded nice. I don't know if you can see the welds on that. It's welded up pretty nice. That's the cross member that's going to bolt in place. It sits right underneath those motor mounts. And then these are the new motor mounts. This is the LS swap mount that bolts to the side of the block. Keeps the back of that engine in the same place as the original one. And these are the heavy duty motor mounts that you bolt on. They come with bushings and everything. So that'll be a nice solid base for this new engine. So I'm going to get these things cleaned up, get them painted, get them ready to go. Got those parking pieces all painted up. I got my boy outside with the bar wheel on those. On the original motor mount brackets, I got to use those on the new cross member. So he's out there cleaning those up while I get going and refreshing the new motor. So I got this thing tore down a little more. Got it down to where we can see pretty much everything. I don't see any signs of wear or anything. The cam that I can see looks pretty good in there. I can't really tell on the timing chain yet. I still got to pull the front cover off and the rear cover off. Next thing on this, I'm going to pull the pickup off, that windage tray, get this front cover off so we can inspect everything in there, change out that oil pump and the timing chain if needed. And then I'll get that all back on, and then I'll have to lift this with the engine hoist to get this back cover off and replace that before I can put the oil pan on again. We are getting all the parts cleaned up, the valve covers. There's the valley cover down there. I am gonna clean this up pretty good, as best I can anyway. So when we go back together, everything's clean, maybe hit it with a little bit of paint and go from there. I also did get all those exhaust manifold bolts out that were broken off, welded a nut on them and spun them out. That's the only way to do it. It'd be a pain in the ass trying to drill these out. So if you have a welder, that's the way to do it. Build it up with a little bit of weld material, throw a nut on there, weld that thing on from the inside of the nut, and then just throw a wrench on it and slowly back it out. That's the slickest way I've found. So I'm gonna get going on pulling this front timing cover off and see what we find. So I pulled that windage tray off, pulled the oil pickup off. It doesn't look too bad in here. I can still see the cross hatching on the bores. You probably can't see it from there. Just glancing down and looking at the cam lobes on all these, I don't see anything that's looking irregular or out of place or excess wear or anything. I think I did get a little bit of water in here when I pressure washed it. I don't think that valley cover gasket was sealing 100%, but that's fine. There's not a whole lot, just a little bit of water. I had to send my kid to this parts store to get a puller for this. The puller I have does not work, so I got to get a puller for that before I can pull that front case off. Another thing I forgot to tell you when I was pulling those coil packs and plug wires, those plug wires were just pulling out. That's the inside of the plug wire. You can see it's just pulling the ends off of those. So I was planning on getting new plug wires anyway, which isn't a big deal. I'm still kind of up in the air if I'm gonna do headers or not, or if I'm gonna go back with the exhaust manifold. I need to check with the emissions place and see what's legit and if I can put headers on it. Will it still pass emissions, things like that. Once my kid gets back, I'm gonna pull that front cover off and hopefully won't find anything.
The next day.
Well, here's the tornado I made last night. Didn't get much done. Went to the auto parts store. Got one of these janky pullers that never seems to work. Tried that on the balancer. Couldn't get it to work. Got frustrated. Abandoned it for the night. Struggled with it for a while. But I got the right puller on its way right now. It should be here any minute. But I'm gonna get going on cleaning some of this stuff up so I can try and make some progress on this thing tonight. So let's go. Well, here's the point I got to. I got this thing all resealed. Got the new seal for the front cover, a new front seal for the crank, oil pan gasket, valve cover gaskets, rear main seal, and the rear back plate seal. I also put, I don't know if you can see that pilot bearing in there because I'm keeping the SM465 manual transmission in this truck. So I got that put in there. Did a new gasket for the oil cooler. I'm gonna try and reuse the factory radiator that has the oil cooler in it. One thing I screwed up on, and the reason kind of I stopped filming, is when I was putting this front cover on, I tightened these bolts down before I tightened the oil pan bolts down, which is a no-no. I knew it was a no-no. I'm not sure why I did it. It was getting late, but I snugged these all down, torqued them, then tried to torque the pan bolts that go from the pan into that cover. It was offset a little bit. There was a little bit of a gap there, and that pressure snapped the corner of my oil pan off. As you can see right there. So I bought a new oil pan. I didn't film redoing that stuff, but I got it on there. I did throw a little bit of spray paint on these valve covers. This truck was red originally, and the interior is gonna stay red. I wanna paint the outside probably black. So I wanted to add just a little bit of red to kind of tie the engine bay to the interior and vice versa. So that's the point I'm at. I think I've got everything pretty much ordered that I need. I'm gonna get this thing off of this engine stand. I'm gonna start putting the flywheel and the clutch and all that stuff on, get that on. I'm gonna put the accessories all back on and get this thing buttoned up. Still got a lot of work to do, but it's coming along. Here's where we got to tonight. I made some pretty good progress on the engine, got the coil packs on, got the whole front accessory drive on. Other than the AC compressor, I've got to get a bracket to move that up. I did put a new thermostat in, all new gaskets. I still need to torque that balancer bolt. I haven't done that yet. I got a new one to throw in there and still need to torque that. Got the oil filter on, the flywheel, the clutch, pressure plate, all that stuff installed. I did use ARP bolts for the flywheel and the clutch. Got a new dipstick tube in it. That may have to come out when I put the headers on, but I just wanted to get it off the floor and get everything kind of sealed up. So the engine's coming right along. I have headers, spark plug wires ordered. I have new plugs over here already. While I was doing all this, my kid pulled out the transmission and transfer case, got them out. I helped him a little bit. We got that pulled out. I need to get this all cleaned up, make sure everything's good to go so I can get that attached to the engine and put it in kind of all as one unit. That's the plan anyway. I also need to get a new mount for that cross member because it's probably the original one. It's pretty shot. I'll find a new mount for that. So it's coming right along. I know it's a mess in here. You can't really do anything about that until the project's done, but it's looking pretty bare in here. So I think tomorrow the plan is get that transmission stuff kind of cleaned up, get in the engine bay and in that transmission tunnel cleaned up, maybe hit the frame rails with a wire wheel, do whatever we need to do to get them kind of cleaned up so I can paint all this stuff. I'm planning on painting the frame and that firewall, get it all painted. I do have new inner fenders because these are pretty rusted out on the underside. So I need to put those in. I may even take the whole front clip off of this, I'm not sure. But we're making progress and that's the goal. Keep making progress every day. Try and get this thing done. So hopefully by the end of tomorrow, I can have that transmission and everything stabbed onto that engine. This all cleaned out. I may push it outside, pressure wash it, get it cleaned up, maybe even get it painted. Once I do that, I can get that new cross member in, get the motor mounts on, and set this whole thing in here. One step closer to being done. So I'm gonna go get cleaned up, eat a little dinner, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Rebuilt transmission, bell housing, got it all cleaned up, painted up. I did order a new front bearing cover on this. This thing is pretty chewed up and kind of hangs up on that throwout bearing. I got a new arm for that goes out to the slave cylinder. Once I get the new front bearing cover for this transmission, I'll be able to throw that all on. I may try and throw this bell housing on the engine, get it installed. That way when that new cover comes, I can just stab the transmission on it and be good to go. Also resealed the transfer case, got it cleaned up, ran some new sealant in there. I did order some new plugs, the 4-wheel drive indicator. This thing's broken off, and also the reverse light switch on the transmission. Those plugs are both broken, so I got new ones of those to throw in. And then I got this engine cross member kind of mocked up in here. Now, whoever wrote the instructions for this should probably find another line of work. I think I got it figured out with the hardware they sent. They sent all the hardware except for these top bolts that go right in here. I'm not sure why they didn't replace those. I'm guessing you have to use the factory bolts. I don't know. Got the motor mounts kind of mocked in there. Over here on the side, the bolts that go through the side to the factory motor mount, these are smaller hardware than everything else for some reason. I'm not sure why. I'm guessing that's where they go. It didn't say in the instructions. All the instructions say is pretty much drill a few holes, is use one factory hole on one side, 2 on the other, and then drill the others, and what to torque the bolts to. This is what you get. And you get a black and white picture. I tried looking on their website, seeing if I could decipher where hardware goes or what goes where. There's not much information, so I'm kind of winging it with that. Also, if you're doing this on a stock height truck like I am, it's got the factory suspension under it, go a different route. Don't go with this unless you're planning to take the whole suspension off. You cannot get in there. Now this is up on jack stands with the suspension fully dropped. You cannot get in there between that axle housing and the frame with a drill to drill those holes. Not even with an angle drill you can't get in there. That bit is too long. So what I had to do is undid the shock, undid the shackles in the back, undid my sway arm, undid brake lines, and pretty much dropped this whole front axle down so I had enough space in there to get a drill and drill those holes through the bottom. Now, I understand it's from off-road design. They deal with a lot of off-road stuff, big lifted stuff, and that's probably not an issue if you're replacing the whole front suspension or have leaf springs and stuff like that in there that have a larger arch to them. But that's a pain in the ass if you're working on a stock, or even with a 2 or 4 inch lift, this would probably be a pain in the ass. But I got it in there, got it mocked in there. So that's where we're sitting right now. I did pull the inner fender liners out. They were kind of a pain. I do have some rot in here, blew out one of these on this side. And then over here on the driver's side, that's pretty rotten. They're all pretty rotten. Everything kind of up underneath, all these blew out. They were all rotten. So I ordered some new fenders. Those should be coming, and I'll have to swap these out. Kind of a setback in that department, but we're still rocking and rolling. So I've just been tinkering with this at night, you know, doing a little bit here, a little bit there, trying to manage this and family time and stuff like that. So this video is rolling over a few days, but we're making progress. I'm gonna keep going. So we got a little bit done tonight. Got that bell housing on, got the slave cylinder on. That wasn't too bad. Got it all bolted down, new throwout bearing and everything. I'm kind of test fitting these motor mounts. Again, just like that cross member, there's 0 instructions for these, so I'm not sure. It's got a couple different mounting locations. So I'm gonna have to look into that and see which ones to use. I'm not sure yet. Cleaned up the exhaust manifold surface. I was gonna put those new headers on that I got from Speed Engineering. I got these shorty headers and I have V-band clamps. I figured that would be perfect for the setup with the clutch, but those don't fit. That the collector dumps right into that slave cylinder, so those aren't gonna work. I even grabbed the factory manifolds. Those aren't gonna work, so I'm gonna have to do some more research. Hopefully I can send these back. And they have a different header for this application, so I can use those. On this transfer case, I also got that 4-wheel drive indicator plug swapped out and that reverse switch on the transmission. I also put that new transmission mount on there, getting it ready to go in. I still need to paint the cross member. I'll probably do that when I paint the frame and everything like that. Get that all done kind of at one time. We're also doing some steaming on the engine, getting some of that grease and stuff off. I had Screetus out here doing that, helping me out. So we're gonna clean up out here for the night. Hopefully this weekend we can make some progress, get the frame rails cleaned up and painted, get that cross member and those engine mounts locked into place for good, and have this thing ready to go back together. So that's what you'll see in the next video. You'll see us getting those frame rails good to go. Under the hood, getting it all painted, dabbing this transmission onto the back of this engine, and maybe even dropping this thing in, I don't know. Also, if you guys haven't checked out my other channel, if you guys like guns, Ballistically Challenged is my other channel, go check that out. I do gun content over there. So go check that out if you want to. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that thumbs up button, and we'll see you guys next time.